Okay, this is Instagram Stories. Today, we're focusing on building out the Stories viewer to navigate between images, GIFs, and videos automatically and by tapping. Here's the plan. Step 1. Create user and story models to represent data in our app. Step 2. Display images, GIFs, and videos using a page view controller. Step 3. Add tap gestures to go forward, backwards, and to pause and play videos. Step 4. Create animated bars that fill based on a specified duration or video length. Step 5. Add a user's profile picture and name. Before we get started, make sure you check out my website, marcus-ing.com, for my Flutter courses that teach you how to build a variety of apps with Firebase, from a Notes app, to Instagram, to a real-time chat. Also, according to YouTube statistics, only a small percentage of people that watch my videos are actually subscribed. So if you enjoy this video, consider subscribing and hit the bell to get notified whenever I release new content. Enjoy the video. In a new Flutter project, let's start by creating a folder called Models. The first file we're creating is our user model. Each story needs to have a user to display information about. Our user class has a string name and string profile image URL. The constructor has @required annotations from the meta package to ensure that all instances of user will have a name and profile image. Next, let's create our story model. We know that each story needs a direct URL to the content. To identify whether a story is an image or video, we'll make an enum media type containing image and video and add a media variable of type media type. Next, we'll add a duration, which represents the amount of time our story stays on the screen. And finally, we can't forget to attach each story to a specific user. Let's add our const constructor with the @required annotations. In main.dart, remove the default homepage widget and replace it with a stateful widget named StoryScreen. StoryScreen takes in a required list of stories and will display full-screen images, GIFs, and videos. Since this app is for demonstration purposes, let's mock up our data in a file called data.dart and pass it into our story screen. If you're following along, you can either create your own list of stories or grab the contents of the file from the GitHub link in the description. Don't forget to start the repo while you're there. Let's also lock the orientation of our app to portrait mode by setting the preferred device orientation to portrait up. Now let's go into our pubspec.yaml file and add two packages. The first is cache network image to show images and GIFs, and the second is video player. The video player package requires a little bit of setup. We have to add the NS app transport security key to our info.plist, and internet permission to our Android manifest.xml. At the time of this recording, the video player package does not load videos on iOS simulators, so be sure to run the app on either a physical device or an Android emulator. Back in our story screen, let's add a page controller and instantiate it in an init state. We also need to have a video player controller and a current index. For now, set the video player controller to a video that's always playing. To make the content take up the entire screen, set the body of our scaffold to a pageview.builder. The controller is the page controller we just created. Item count is widget.stories.length, and item builder returns the content using cache network image or video player based on whether the media is an image or video. In order to scale the video to the full width and height of the screen, we check if the video controller has been initialized, and then use a fitted box with boxFit.cover containing a sized box with a width and height equal to the video controller. If media is not equal to an image or video, then we return sizebox.shrink. Our app loads all of the content. Wrap the pageview.builder in a gesture detector listening for onTapDown that calls onTapDown passing in details and current story. We use onTapDown instead of onTap because we need tap-down details to know where the user taps on the screen. Beneath our build method, create the onTapDown method. we want to separate our screen into thirds. Screen width is the width of our device. dx is the x position the user tapped on. Since the x-axis goes from left to right with values 0 to screen width, we can easily divide up our screen into thirds by checking if dx is less than a third of the screen and if dx is greater than 2/3 of the screen. When the user taps on the left or right side of the screen, we check if the new index will be out of bounds and decrement or increment the current index by 1 accordingly. If the middle of the screen is tapped, we check if the media is a video and if it's currently playing to pause and play the video correctly. To disable our page views scrolling, set physics to never scrollable scroll physics. Right now, if we try to navigate between pages, it won't work because we didn't call pageController.animate to page. We'll add it in the next step. Story screen will always have one animated bar animating at a time, so extend story screen state with a single ticker provider state mixin, and add the new instance variable animation controller. Inside our init state, we instantiate our anim controller without our duration for now, and create a status listener that increments the current index by 1 and calls the method loadStory when the animation completes. LoadStory takes in a story and an animate-to-page boolean that defaults to true if unspecified. The reason for this boolean is to avoid running the page controller's animate-to-page on index 0 when the screen loads for the first time. Back in init state, replace the video player controller instantiation with a loadStory call to load the first story. When a story is loaded, we first need to stop the bar animation and reset the animation controller's value back to 0. This value allows us to manipulate the length of the animated bar. In the case where the media is an image, we just set the animation duration to the story's specified duration and start the animation with animController.forward. For videos, we set the video controller to null, dispose of any existing video controller, and fetch the video using its URL. Once initialized, we call setState to re-render our widget tree, set the animation duration to length of the video, play the video, and start the animation. Outside of the switch statement, we check if animate to page is true, and move to the previous or next page in our page controller. The duration is set to 1 millisecond because animate to page requires a duration greater than 0, and we want to instantly change pages without a scrolling animation. In onTapDown, we have to remember to call loadStory after modifying the current index and stop and start the animation controller when the user pauses or plays the video respectively. Now, in order to display the animated bars above story content, the page view must be wrapped in a stack. We'll position a row widget at the top of the screen. The row's children parameter is set to a map over widget.stories that returns a list of animated bars. The reason we convert widget.stories to a map is to access the position of the story in widget.stories. Animated bar is a stateless widget with anim controller, position, and current index. It returns a flexible widget with the layout builder to build containers to the correct constraints. The stack has a container that stretches to its maximum possible width, and layers an animated builder on top of it, increasing the width of the bar as anim controller's value increases. If the position of the container is before the current index, the bar is filled all the way as the content of those stories have already been viewed. The buildContainer method returns a rounded container with a thin border and modifiable width and color. Before we forget, let's override StoryScreen's dispose method to remove the page controller, animation controller, and video controller, if instantiated, from our widget tree. Create a new stateless widget called UserInfo that takes in a user. UserInfo returns a row widget with a circle avatar for the user's profile image, text to display the user's name, and an icon button that calls navigator.pop. Wrapping text in expanded pushes the icon button to the right side of the screen and ensures that the username is able to take up all the space between the start of the name and the icon button. Inside of the story screen's build function, let's wrap the row containing the list of animated bars in a column. Add a padding widget with user info as its child to display the information right below the animated bars. And now we're all done building the Instagram Stories viewer. Remember to leave a like, subscribe, share this video, and start the repo on GitHub. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.